Today I will be talking about floods, which is a part of MEV 002. I would introduce myself as Professor Baskar from Guru Jambheshwar University, Hisar. After listening to this lecture, you should be able to describe the nature of floods, the hazards associated with floods, understand the different type of floods, and know the various flood mitigation measures. Now, there is a strong link between floods and hydrological cycle. Floods have been occurring throughout the history of the earth, and it will occur if the hydrological cycle operates. Hydrological cycle will operate so long as sun's energy is received, and you can see streams receive most of their water input from precipitation. Amount of precipitation falling in any given drainage basin varies on a daily, yearly and centennial basis. From a purely geological point of view, floods are a natural consequence of stream flow in a continually changing environment. If you see the hydrological cycle, it involves several processes like precipitation, evaporation, infiltration, runoff and transpiration. And if you see, there are various forms of water on the earth and approximately 70% of the surface of the earth is covered by salty water oceans. Some of the areas, for example continents, are covered by fresh waters like lakes and rivers. There is also different form of water, solid water, ice and snow, and vegetation which also has some water. Water on the earth is stored in various reserves, and various water flows transport water from one to another. This is the hydrological cycle. You can see the evaporation from the oceans is and the land is more than the precipitation which occurs in ocean. That results in rainfalls in the continents, and that results in runoff flow, and that results in infiltration and groundwater recharge. Now, large amount of water flowing into streams can cause flooding. Some of the causes for flooding can be that during heavy rainfall, the river overflow its bank, or when ocean waves come onshore. In simple terms, a flood occurs when the stream runs out of its confines and submerges surrounding areas. Floods can also occur due to other reasons, like when snow melts rapidly or when dams or levees fail. There is an area which is called floodplain, which is nearly flat and which is adjacent to the stream or river. You can see in the diagram in the picture, and this area experiences flooding which can be occasional or frequent. There is a difference in the floods which occur in the developing countries, the impact of the floods which occur in the developing countries and in the developed countries. Normally, floods in developing countries causes severe losses because of following reasons. One, they have high population density. There is generally absence of land use planning. There is lack of flood control measures. They can also include lack of emergency response and training. Then there is lack of early warning systems. Bangladesh is one of the examples where 1/2 of the land is at an elevation less than 8 meters above sea level. You can see this picture which shows floods in Bangladesh which occurred in 2019. Now, the floods, when they occur in developed countries, the loss of life is usually lower, but it does not mean property damage is not there. There is property damage. Why there is less damage, less loss of life is proper flood control structures are there. There are strict zoning regulations. There is emergency preparedness, and they also apply engineering solutions which can be costly, such as leaves, bunds, reservoirs and wires to prevent flooding. So, if the developing countries can adopt some of these, then we can reduce the loss of life in these countries. Now, you can see floods in UK. There is a picture in 2015. I have given it for you. Now, causes of floods. There are simple four reasons identified. One is precipitation. The amount and time over which precipitation occurs is variable for any given area. And water cycle, as I said to you in earlier slides, is a balanced system. The water flowing into one part of the cycle is balanced by water flowing back into the ocean. Sometimes the amount flowing into one is greater than the capacity of the system to hold it within the natural confines. This results in flooding. Coastal flooding. Coastlines are subjected to flooding as a result of tsunamis, hurricanes or high tides. Even long-term process, for example subsidence or even sea level rise as a result of global warming can result in encroachment of the sea onto the land and cause floods. Dam and leaf failures. Dam can be natural or man-made, and when they fail, they can suddenly release water and cause downstream drainage. Cloudburst, this is also reported. Extreme amount of precipitation in a very short period of time in a very small geographical area is cloudburst. It can be accompanied by hail and thunder that can create flood conditions. What are the effects of flooding? Any hazard like floods have primary, secondary and tertiary effects. Primary effects occur due to direct contact with flood. Secondary effects that occur because of flooding, for example flood occurred, the disruption of services was caused or health impacts like famine and disease were caused. Tertiary effects can be long-term changes, for example changes in the position of river channels. Now, what are the impacts of the floods? You can see it can be on the agriculture, it can be on the food, it can be on the livestock, it can be on the impacts of livelihood of people. So, it affects all these areas. Now, what are the primary effects? With higher velocities, stream transport larger particles as suspended load. When these larger particles are transported, sometimes you must have seen in news also, large objects such as automobiles, houses and bridges also get collapsed. They can also go and hit these big particles and cause damage. And these huge flood can cause massive amount of erosion. And if these waters enter the human built structure, they can be damaged because of these. Then flooding of farmland is normally resulting in crop damage, and there is reports always of livestock, pet and other animals which are carried away and drowned. These are the primary effects. You can see the picture here. Secondary effects. Secondary effects means the drinking water supply can get polluted if sewerage treatment plants are flooded. There can be leakage and they can connect with the drinking water supply and this can get polluted. This can cause health and other effects. For example, floods can also concentrate the waste disposal which we do, garbage, debris, toxic pollutants. Secondary effects also include sometimes gas and electrical service can be disrupted. Sometimes the transportation systems may be disrupted, affecting the food supply and causing serious consequences. For example, you can see that secondary effect, the whole main highway is flooded with water. You can see this picture. So, there are tertiary effects, these are long-term changes which take place, and what happens in this? New river channels can develop and leaving the old channels dry because water has taken a new course. Sediment deposited due to flooding may destroy agricultural land, this is also possible. Changes in the ecology of the area can also occur, these are long-term changes as a result of tertiary effect. If you see, this diagram shows you flooding, the water is stagnating in agricultural land and it can cause crop damage. Now, there are different types of floods. Floods can be rapid or slow. It can be classified as riverine, estuarine, coastal, catastrophic or muddy floods. Riverine floods, the name tells it is from heavy rains from monsoons, hurricanes and tropical depressions. And these are slow, and rapid riverine flooding is normally caused by intense thunderstorm. Estuarine floods, again this name tells you that storm force winds generate sea tidal surges which can flood estuarine areas. These occur in estuarine areas because of sea tidal surges. Coastal floods, again these are in coastal areas. Tsunami, hurricanes and sea storms are known to cause coastal floods. Catastrophic floods, the name says catastrophic events like earthquake, volcanic eruption or dam failure can cause these kind of floods. Muddy floods, again it is very clear that these are muddy in nature and runoff on the cropland can damage the agriculture. Now these are the examples I am giving in slide detail. Riverine floods are caused by melting of snow and precipitation over large areas. They take place in river, that is why they are river floods or riverine floods. Floods in large rivers take hours to days, that means they have normally warning time. The ground condition affects the runoff, depends on what is the topography of the area. Sometimes we also hear about flash floods. Flash floods happen in a short time. They have a great volume of water and are local floods. The runoff of intense rain results in high flood waves. Flash floods result in failure of dams. Again I am showing you a picture of flash floods. Coastal floods, you can see the picture of Venezuela in December 1999. These are caused by tides, storms, tropical cyclones or tsunamis. They are in the coastal regions. They can happen in the ocean and affect the general public and maritime interest along the coastline. Now there is a new term which is called urban floods. Urban floods are when water is onto the roads and parking lots. This happens because it can't absorb the rainfall, because it is not like a normal sand or normal soil where water percolates down. Flooding in cities and towns caused by increasing incidence of rainfall in a short period of time, indiscriminate encroachment of waterways, inadequate capacity of drains and poor maintenance. If the drainage is not properly maintained, again these add to the problem. You can also see there are some flood control measures. There are engineering solutions as well as non-engineering or policy solutions. These are called non-structural approach through sound floodplain management. The engineering solutions are constructing artificial levees. I will tell you what they are in the coming slides. Flood control dams, channelization. And non-structural approach is identify high risk areas, then zoning, regulations and development, and then one can have insurance programs and risk mitigation programs which become difficult to obtain in certain flood prone areas. Thereby you regulate the human behavior. Now what is the flood control dam? Normally these are used to store water and they release slowly the water, and normally these dams are multifunctional. They have agricultural purposes for irrigation water. They also generate sometimes power, hydroelectric power, and they are also used for recreation spaces. Now these are the engineering structures which are important. You can see the picture here. The sea walls, that part of construction which seeks to prevent waves from hitting the coast or the shores. What you are seeing is a coastal area and you have made a wall made up of concrete so that the waves do not come and hit, they block the waves. Now this is another way of artificial beach nourishment. For example, Miami Beach gets straightened. How they did it? 61 tons of fresh sands are to be dumped across the coastline to combat erosion and rising sea levels. Rising sea levels can also be because of climate change. Now in London, if you see, they have built a mechanical barrier. In London, that is protected from flooding by a huge mechanical barrier. This is called the Thames barrier across the river Thames. This barrier is raised when the water level rises. This is a mechanical structure which protects London. Then you can see where is a low head dam is a barrier across the width of the river that alters the flow characteristics of water. You can see the figure that from top to bottom the flow characteristic is changed and usually results in change of height of the river level. So you can use these also to control the floods. Then you can see the next one is leaf. Leaf can be natural or artificially constructed, and that regulates the water level. And normally it is made up of earthen material, and they run parallel to the course of a river in its floodplain or along low-lying coastlines. Then you can have bunds. Bunds are constructed to create stability of existing subsoils, slope and angles and water levels to ensure that the integrity of the reclamation area is intact. You can see this figure, these are the bunds. Then you can alter a stream, this is called channelization. This is also altering a stream to change the speed of flow of water to prevent reaching flood height. How can you do it? Artificially, you make a channel that is widened or deepens river to increase the capacity for flow at a specific section of the river. And you have to clean the channel of the debris so that water flow is there. Dredging can be done to widen the deepen channel, and you can line the channel with concrete. You can see this is an example of channelization. Channelization is the artificial way of managing the stream flow. It's an engineering solution. Now I will give you an example of Kashmir floods which occurred in 2014. Why it occurred? Because proper wetlands were not preserved, and water bodies and flood spill channels were covered. So it is very important to avoid such repetition. We should restore the wetlands. We should see that water bodies and flood spill channels, the channels through which the water move, are not blocked. Climate change is another serious issue which can cause floods. With higher temperatures, we have more energy in the earth system. If we have more energy, higher ocean water and air temperatures increase the possibility of evaporation and therefore cloud formation. At higher temperatures, the air cannot hold more moisture content. This can lead to an increase in precipitation intensity, duration and frequency. That is what we are seeing, unusual floods related to climate change. Floods are made more likely by the more extreme weather patterns caused by long-term global climate change. Change in land cover, for example, if you remove vegetation, this is again linked to climate change and precipitation patterns. Climate change can increase floods. Extreme floods can be triggered by intense precipitation, longer duration, close repetition of precipitations, or a combination of these. Now in India, Central Water Commission is entrusted with the monitoring of flood situation in the country during designated flood period by observing water levels, discharges along the major rivers in the country and issuing forecasts to the local administration, project authorities, state governments, including ministries such as Home Ministry, NDMA, NDRF, etc. Then you can see the National Disaster Management Authority has issued guidelines management of floods, and they have done this with the mission to minimize the vulnerability of floods and consequent loss of lives, livelihood systems, property and damage to infrastructure and public utilities. Thanks for the patient listening.